Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever thought of money as simply frozen work? It's basically energy, right? Captured, stored, and put on ice for future use. But, well, what happens when the freezer breaks? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating synthesis of macroeconomic data, portfolio architecture, and social theory to uncover what we're calling the ultimate cosmic alpha strategy. We're going to look at how high net worth investors, maybe like yourself, can transform from simple capital accumulators into energy shepherds, actively protecting their wealth by engineering what we call thermodynamic gold. Now, to really grasp the solution, we first need to take an impartial look at the problem. Since the US dollar was decoupled from the gold standard back in 1971, its purchasing power has fundamentally shifted. As one of our sources points out, there's just no way for anyone to really compete with the rate of money printing. I mean, think about the value of an ounce of gold multiplying immensely since it sat at just $37. It really highlights this structural devaluation of fiat currency. When the money supply just constantly expands, the purchasing power of your frozen work, it just thins right out. Okay, let's dive into this because this number right here puts the sheer scale of the issue into perspective. $1.8 trillion. According to the Congressional Budget Office baseline for fiscal year 2025, that is our projected federal budget deficit. That's literally roughly 6.1% of our entire GDP. And we are running this massive deficit in a completely non-recessionary environment. It's wild to think about. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The macro entropy crisis. 2. The wealth tree architecture. 3. The threat of social entropy. 4. The AI economics paradigm. 5. Investing in community intellect. And finally, 6. Achieving cosmic alpha. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the macro entropy crisis. You know, just like in physics, where entropy is that gradual, unavoidable decline into disorder, in economics, it looks a whole lot like an unmanageable debt gradient. And right now, we are staring down a staggering $38.1 trillion national debt gradient. The structural imbalance here is absolutely profound. You've got mandatory spending, things like Social Security and Medicare, plus the sheer interest on our debt just absorbing massive, massive shares of the budget. In fact, net interest outlays alone are estimated to exceed $1 trillion by fiscal year 2026. This dynamic acts as a huge entropy drain, basically crushing the discretionary spending we'd normally use for critical things like infrastructure and local research. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, the wealth tree architecture. And this brilliantly illustrates the tree of wealth, which is a highly specific $28,155 portfolio architecture. It's definitely not just a random collection of assets. No, it's actually a living, breathing financial machine where every single layer serves a distinct thermodynamic purpose, essentially converting market volatility into steady, usable cash flow. The architecture is broken down into 4 precise layers. First, the root. Ground the portfolio in short-term sovereign debt, giving you that liquid, daily paying stability. Next up is the trunk, which is essentially your plasma engine. It's in charge of harvesting volatility premiums from covered call ETFs. Above that, the branches use the cash flow generated by the trunk to perpetually accumulate Bitcoin-correlated assets without ever being forced to sell. And finally, sitting at the top, the crown holds unencumbered direct Bitcoin. It's a completely closed-loop system, purpose-built to survive the macro entropy we just talked about. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer efficiency of the trunk layer here. This plasma engine generates roughly $335 every single month, which translates to about $4,028 a year. It achieves this 14.3% behavioral yield not by trying to magically time the market, but by systematically harvesting volatility. It provides a recurring fruit, so to speak, that the investor can then direct absolutely anywhere. But here is where we hit a really profound philosophical wall. I mean, what good is this perfectly engineered, impregnable portfolio if the society around it is literally collapsing? If the grid fails or if the workforce stagnates, your isolated financial wealth entirely loses its utility. Simply put, you just can't spend digital yield in a broken physical world. Which brings us to Section 3, the threat of social entropy. The strains on our local systems are incredibly tangible right now. Just consider the energy grid for a second. The massive draw of all these new AI data centers globally requires electricity equal to more than 7 nuclear power plants. At the very same time, we're facing severe demographic shifts. Our over 65 population is doubling, while our young 18-year-old workforce is stagnating. And looking right here at the local level, Colorado actually spends $1,668 less per student than the national average.
So we've got a massive energy constraint paired with a critically underfunded pipeline of young problem solvers.
Section 4, the AI economics paradigm. To actually solve this, we have to completely rethink how we train that next generation. The landscape of education and skill building is undergoing a massive, massive transformation right now. According to market analysis for Colorado in 2026, we are shifting aggressively away from consumption economics, the old model that just measures seat time and course completions. Instead, we are rapidly moving into AI economics. Because generative AI now provides basically content for free, the real value lies in verifiable outcomes, complex workflow integration, and measurable return on investment. We absolutely need youth who can leverage supercomputers, not just sit there and pass standardized tests.
Moving on to Section 5, investing in community intellect.
So, the crucial point is this. As the Min Manifesto beautifully articulates, every human is born with zero knowledge. To survive and advance, each generation must somehow catch up on 14 billion years of universal history, which, let's be honest, is a pretty heavy syllabus for a toddler. We must equip impoverished and middle-income youth with a real understanding of quantum mechanics, supercomputing, and astrophysics. Why? Because we need them to figure out how to harness the weather, the ocean tides, and ultimately solve the incredible energy constraints that are threatening our AI-driven grid. And the analysis suggests that a targeted, intentional $56,000 investment in local STEM and AI literacy education acts as a direct structural hedge against this social entropy.
And finally, Section 6, achieving cosmic alpha.
So, how do we actually link the micro cash flow of the wealth tree to the macro salvation of society? Well, cosmic alpha is achieved when you take that $4,028 a year of passive plasma yield from your wealth tree and you funnel it directly into B2B AI literacy and astrophysics programs right in your local district. You aren't just hoarding wealth anymore, you are becoming an energy shepherd. You're literally converting thermodynamic financial volatility into community intellect, creating this localized grid of brilliant minds that are actually capable of sustaining our future.
This is exactly what it means to mint true thermodynamic gold. An impregnable portfolio is only as strong as the community that surrounds it. By directing your plasma flow toward a much higher purpose, you ensure the grid stays on, the economy innovates, and your legacy endures. So, looking at your own frozen work, your own wealth tree, are you ready to become an energy shepherd for your community?